Hi, it's your favourite Atomic Blonde here with my nerdy weekly roundup. So, for those of you who potentially catch me on the Facebook streams, you've probably seen I've been struggling with some of a heavy cold this week, and my lovely pallor face is probably enough to put you all off. But I'm going to soldier through and hopefully can get through this. So I have literally obviously taken my life in my hands trying to watch certain shows this week in a somewhat unwell state. So all I had for company was Lemsip and Dana to get me through She-Hulk. However, the gods were kind in the sense that this is probably the best episode of She-Hulk that we've had. And that's a pretty low bar. But do not get me wrong, that does not mean this episode was good. But as you see, upshot of this episode is Jen gets banged again. Good old Jen. Were we on 8 episodes? And all she's done so far is lusted after men. You go, girl. So anyway, as you might have seen, we finally got to the episode where they've brought back Daredevil. And yeah, I mean, he was great. Charlie Cox is a great actor. And he just elevated every scene he was in. He's just like acted everybody off the screen. What I will say though is that, in fairness, Titania and him, Charlie, do actually have quite good chemistry, and there's some quite good scenes with them together. So credit where credit's due. But yeah, the potential of that character, the potential of this show, it's just so wasted, and you've just got the usual nonsense going on. So let's go from the top. Oh dear, let me just have a little bit of lemon sip here, guys, before I start coughing. So we start with a superhero, Leapfrog, who's in Jen's office, basically wanting to sue her clothes designer, Luke, for a defective suit. And what we see is this Leapfrog is, again, a dig. He's a millionaire's son and he's a complete plank, and just nice little dig at, white rich boys, and fair enough. But so he basically tells his story that he was trying to take down some robbers, and he ignites his rocket boots and basically sets fire to his legs, and he's now got third-degree burns. She gets the story, goes to her boss, says she doesn't want to take it because there's a conflict of interest, because obviously Luke's the guy that's making her suit and her dress for the gala, which seems to be the only thing she's actually bothered about or interested in, is this dress for the gala, because of her female lawyer of the year, even though she's done actually no lawyering in this show, and what we have seen has been pretty crap. So, and this episode really does nothing to reinforce that she's a good lawyer either, ironically. Anyway, I digress. So she goes to see Luke, says she's been told that she's got to take this case because basically Leapfrog's father's a wealthy client, so she has to take it. Can they settle out of court? He's like, absolutely not. There's never anything wrong with my clothes, in the say the most stereotypical camp black designer way they could do possible. Not remotely insulting, I'm sure. And basically points blank refuses to settle. They then have an exchange, and Jen's like completely unprofessional, not lawyery at all. And it's almost like na kind of exchange. And she drops off and I'll see you in court. And he rips up basically the thing for her dress, and she's not going to get a dress for the gala. We pretty much then end up going to said court scene. She's there. Luke's there waiting for his lawyer to arrive. The lawyer's late. Then that's just so obviously there's big entrance, and Matt Murdock comes in. aka Daredevil, comes in, sits down. Jen's given her all her sort of, oh, this should be, I want to see the client list so we can talk to other clients and find out if there's any other defects. And Matt's like, well, these are for superheroes. We have to keep their personas secret because of what they do, and it will put people at risk if we expose the list. And Jen's like, I don't give a flying fig about people's anonymity, or this should be in the public domain, blah blah blah. So anyway, Matt wins this, and it's like, no, you can't reveal the client list. And then Doofus Leapfrog actually sort of brings his suit into the court. He sort of puts it up on the desk. And obviously Matt Murdock, as we know, is because he's blind, he's obviously got heightened smell, and he can smell something on the suit and says, oh, did you use jet fuel or something, rocket fuel, jet fuel, whatever. I was a little bit delirious at this point. In these rocket boots for the suit, and he's like, yeah, hell man, I did use jet fuel. And kill surprise, obviously Jen has done no prelim with this guy, hadn't looked at the suit, hadn't done any sort of investigation, hadn't said, have you used the product properly, hadn't done, basically lawyering, because, hey, she's lawyer of the year. Go, Jen. And obviously a paralegal doesn't do anything, so hey. Basically then turns around and says, Matt says, well, we need to dismiss the case because he's not followed the instructions. And Luke says, yeah, you're not supposed to put jet fuel in it, blah, blah, blah. Case dismissed. So Jen, lawyer of the year, loses the case because she basically didn't ask a few questions. We then go to their usual bar where Jen spends 90% of her life because she's an alcoholic. She's sitting at the bar, a sort of green appletini gets put down and said, gentleman over there bought you a drink. It's Matt. He then comes round and sits with her. And as I say, we have quite a good exchange. It's not too bad. But he sort of then basically, she's like, why are you defending Luke? You've come from New York. And he's like, oh, he's made me a couple of suits. Wink, wink. And then she sort of makes a comment about that. And he's like, oh, right, so you're giving grief to a blind man about how he dresses. And she's all like, oh, sorry. And he's like, it's okay. She doesn't pick up on the fact, though, that Matt knows that she's in the bar and he sends her a drink over even though he's blind. She just completely passes her by. But anyway, he sort of hints about the suits and, talks to her about sort of She-Hulk and basically sort of says what Bruce said to her in episode 1 that she completely dismissed out of hand because she's always right. That, you've got the opportunity to defend people in the law, but you've got She-Hulk that can help people when the law fails them, kind of thing. And it's kind of like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Doofus. So anyway, Matt goes. We see Jane at home, and then she gets a phone call from Leapfrog guy who's in his car, and the car's being attacked, and he's like, help, I'm being attacked. And she's like, oh, where are you? And he's wherever he is. And she's, oh, I'm not far, I'll meet you there. And she sort of goes to leave the house, and then she's sort of like, oh, what Matt said. So then she goes to a closet, and we finally see the suit that Luke made her, which in terms of suit is this pair of hot pants and a tank top. So she puts that on, goes off to help Leapfrog Man. When she gets there, oh, lo and behold, it's Daredevil attacking him because we didn't see that coming. So this then is like obviously a fight between Daredevil and Jen. Then Jen obviously is hulked up and with complete disregard, given that she's a lawyer and, basically meant to be one of the good guys, just starts damaging property, breaking up this car park, throws a car at Daredevil and like basically nearly kills him, which she just thinks is hilarious. And basically goes does the clap hand thing, and he goes flying and hits a car, and he's nearly unconscious. And she goes, I got ya, and rips off his mask, and he's like, oh, Jen, and she's like, oh, Matt, and then she turns back into Jen, and they just have a chat about why he's like, oh, I'm Daredevil, and she's like, yeah, who? Given it that I have no idea who that is that important? Now, given she heads up a superhero department lawyer firm who specialize in defending these kind of things, you'd think she know who the superheroes are on the radar. But hey, this show has no logic whatsoever. So anyway, basically transpires that Leapfrog Boy has kidnapped Luke and he's getting him to make him another suit because obviously Luke wouldn't make him one after the court case. Then there's a whole Daredevil's like, well, I've been doing this a long time. I'm going to go in and I'll pick them off and then we'll get Luke and that's the safest thing to do. And then Jen's like, yeah, but I'm a Hulk smash because I know everything, even though I've done absolutely no superhearing whatsoever, which he does point out. But when does Jen ever listen to anybody? So he goes in, Jen goes in, and again, she sort of crashes through stuff and there's concrete falling and basically complete disregard for human life. She just goes around trashing the place. But the upshot is obviously they save Luke. But then you've also like, well, this fighting's going on. Jen's basically trying to say to Leapfrog Guy, stand down, here's some political stuff and lawyer stuff. And then you got Matt Murdock chipping in going, yeah, we could claim this, that, and the other thing, which completely gives away who he is. What are the writers thinking? And it's like, well, they don't, do they? It's like, hey, this would be really funny if he's giving legal advice while he's beating people up. Lord help me. One episode to go. So, Luke saved. Leapfrog Guy, I don't know, go prison, whatever, got picked up, can't remember. And of course, the most important thing to Jen is, oh, does that mean you'll make me my dress for the gala now? And he's like, yeah, I'm not a monster kind of thing. So, and obviously while this fight is going on, we had a fourth wall moment with Jen coming in her knickers again going, ooh, he's hot. So, kill surprise. This week, she doesn't even need fries. Straight back to Jen's place, and they're banging. Oh, Jen. Now, I'm not quite sure what the writers are saying about Jen. So, in, say, 8 episodes, this is the 3rd time she's got laid. The first 2 times, the first guy wanted to sleep with She-Hulk, not Jen. The second time, the guy slept with Jen, but only because he wanted to get her blood. And now she's being done by a blind guy. I don't know. But anywho, they do the bad thing. And then the next morning, paralegal who does no work, still isn't doing any work, comes in with her makeup kit and the dress and wearing, I'm not quite sure what kind of outfit for a Saturday morning. I assume it's a Saturday morning. Looks like she's going to Studio 54 or something. Who knows? And you see Matt Murdock walking along, whistling, supposedly doing the walk of shame, holding his boots in his hand. Well, they're boots. They're not high heels. A guy's just going to put his boots on. And a dude gives no you-know-whats. The next morning, he'll just be strutting along going, yeah, in nice clothes, high five me, thanks very much. There is no walk of shame for men. These writers are so stupid. Oh, give me strength. So anyway, we then get a fourth wall moment with Jane going, well, it ended well for me. Wink, wink. Surely we can end the episode now then. What else could there possibly tell? If only they did end the episode right there, but no such luck. So then Jen goes to the female lawyer of the, or the lawyer of the year awards, whatever they are. Turns up, she's all in her sparkly gown by Luke, looking amazing and whatever. Her parents are there and they're saying, oh, we're so proud of you. And she's, oh, really? Because obviously Jen never gets any validation, apart from every single episode. So then they call the winner of the female lawyer of the year. And her name's called and she stands up and she's all like, oh. And then they call out about another 6 women's names. So they all win the award. Oh. And then they're sort of going, oh, what does this award mean to you? And one of them sort of makes a comment about, really annoyed that I don't earn as much as men and I don't get enough recognition and I get fed up with men asking me what it's like to be a woman in a law role. And then Jen starts a speech thanking her family and then on the screen behind her from the website incels who basically hated her the other week start putting images up and calling her names, and then there's some like video that there's been a camera in her bedroom. You basically see her getting it on. Well, obviously not getting it on, but and she basically hulks, even though she's already in Hulk form, she proper hulks and like pulls down all the video screens, and she's absolutely fuming. So going back to court earlier, where it's like your private life should be in the public domain, and you're not entitled to privacy. Well, 10 minutes later, out the window. So she's all getting all hulky. These guys show up who are recording her with like masks on and stuff. So the people who have set her up. And then she sort of just smashes through walls and goes after them. And then she's outside, all going Hulk angry, because Jen's always angry. Apparently, she's completely under control and never hulks out until this moment. Wow, didn't see that coming. But Jen's brilliant. Everything. So how did this happen? So anyway, she's there. There's all policemen and pointing laser guns at her, and she's sort of got her hands up, and she's like huffing, and that ends there. So that was that. So on the plus side, they didn't completely trash Daredevil, but hey, we've got a whole series for them to do that. So, he definitely elevated the show just because he's such a good actor, and kind of made it almost watchable, almost. But this, everything else around it was just crap as always. So, as I say, one episode to go. Thank the Lord. So, can't wait for that season finale. Who knows what they're going to pull out the bag and be a massive twist that we haven't seen coming all season. Anywho's. Now, I was incredibly worried about watching this show in my poorly state. I thought I might actually, I was in danger of slipping into a coma. And as we were led to believe last week, as I said, apparently episode 5 is when the action kicks in. If this is what they call kicking in the action, boy, are we in trouble. So this review will probably take maybe a minute. This is what happened this episode. Police dude, security guy from first 3 episodes who ballsed up, has a terrible mum. We find out he has a terrible mum, and she's like, oh, you come home sleeping, you could have come when you were doing successful, but now I've got to look at you and think of you as a complete failure. Nice mum. We then find out older Mothma, whatever her name is, Senator, is a terrible mum. Her daughter prefers her dad, and her mum never has any time for her. Imperial Karen was basically praised and goes, don't you listen to all those nasty men. You're far cleverer than them. You're definitely onto something. All these burglaries and stealing parts is far too random. There's actually almost like a pattern here, even though it's random. You go, Imperial Karen. And then the rest of the episode was basically Andor still arguing with the guys he's doing the heist with, like, I don't think we can trust you. You can trust me. We know nothing about you. I'm not going to tell you. You need to trust me. I don't trust you. We're not going to do the heist. Then they find the necklace thing that Stellan gave Andor. Apparently it's worth a load of money, and go, hey, look, see, he was lying. He's got this really expensive necklace. I don't know how that points to anything, but hey. So then Andor just basically turns around and said, yeah, he paid me to be here. So what? I'm not for the cause. I'm here for the money. Han Solo-ish. And they sort of went, oh, okay then. And they cracked on with the plan. We still haven't actually had the heist. It almost happened. So they're all teed up. Black Imperial Guard, who's obviously working for the rebellion, has arranged it that there's hardly any guards on the night they want to do the heist, which will be next episode. That was it. That was pretty much the episode. I don't know. I really don't know what to say. Again, I mean, the show looks great. The more we see of Coruscant and the flying cars and stuff, and it is looking sounding a bit more Star Wars. But geez, I mean, they're slow burn and just No bird at all. If this show does not pick up, I mean, there's little to no buzz around this show now already. I think people who are giving it the benefit of doubt are now starting to just go, I don't know where this is going, other than the heist. If it takes 16 episodes to get to the heist, geez. Yeah, it's a real waste of writers and budget, I guess, and filming on location and all those kind of things. So I don't know. I don't know whether to watch next week's episode or not. I might, if I will take a sneak peek, and if the heist happens, I will watch it. If we have to wait another week for the heist, I'm out. Seriously, I can't. There's all these like trying to build characters, just saying that everybody's like a really bad person. There's no likable characters in this at all. Other than Stellan, who's okay. Stellan, trying to be a good actor with not a lot to go with. Yeah. So that's Ambor. Keep boring us, Ambor. Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness for House of the Dragon. Oh, this was such a good episode. And literally sort of, carries on after last week's, maybe a few days, because we basically start with the funeral of Daemon's wife. Obviously, was torched by her dragon as she was dying childbirth. So it's also up. So everybody's there. Obviously, the king's there, Alicent, their sons. Rhaenyra's there with her sons. So all the royal courts there. So everything is staged for something to happen. Her uncle is basically giving a speech in High Valyrian as they sort of lower the casket into the sea, because they're from the sea. They return to the sea as Valyrians, and they basically make a comment around her children and the legacy, and that they're pure bloods, sort of really making an open dig at Rhaenyra. And basically Daemon just starts laughing. He just starts chuckling. So I think he just finds all this sort of infighting, and or even at a funeral, they'll still get a dig in. There's always a time and a place for a bit of a dig. So everybody's sort of looking at him quite shocked that he'd be laughing, obviously. And they say that the coffin gets dropped into the sea. It then kind of cuts to the wake, and obviously there's just sort of several conversations happening. So Rhaenyra goes to her son Jack, and basically sort of comforts him, and you sort of see over at his cousins, who obviously have just lost their mother. She says, like, can you go over and have a kind word for them? And he kind of makes a comment to say, well, where's the sympathy for me? We've just lost Sir Lionel and Sir Harwood. And she sort of and sort of gets, says that, it's not appropriate. We can't be seen to be grieving, and it's bad. And she's like, do you understand? And the kid kind of nods and gets it, and goes over to his cousins. And they all seem to be quite close, actually, the cousins. But obviously they're not close to Aemond and Aegon. But the other four seem to be quite close. So we kind of see that Solaris is there, and he just keeps like staring at the queen and sort of smirking and kind of wink, and to the point that even Sir Kristen sort of says to her, he's been hovering around you. I think he wants to talk to you. And she's sort of quite dismissive of it, and just says, oh, he's just, he's now like, lord of the, he's taken over from his father. He's now lord, that's all it is. Just like, let's not think about that. And then we have a lovely, Lord Valerian goes over to Rhaenyra's son, Luke, and basically sort of says to him, one day Driftmark will be yours. Your brother's going to be king, but this will be yours. And Luke's quite a soft soul, and sort of says like, but I don't want it. And he's like, well, why? And he goes, well, for me to have all this, that means everybody else is dead. So you learn quite a bit about his character, and that, you know, he's not for the game, basically. So he's quite a soft soul. Um, Probably gets that from from his grandfather, the king, that, you know, he just wants everybody to be sort of kind of happy. Um, uh, we sort of just see Aegon is just basically all about the drinking, all about the girls, and his exchange with his brother, where he's obviously been betrothed to his sister, who just comes across as a bit bonkers. But basically, what she's sort of just repeating stuff. But I think she's some kind of she sort of has visions, or she's like predicting stuff. But it just sounds like she's spouting like nonsense, and he's just like, oh my god, I've got to sort of marry that. And his brother's like, well, we need to do our duty. I would marry her if mother had betrothed her to me. You know, we need to, you know, be strong as a family. And this is like the younger brother, but obviously, yeah, the other brother's just like, hey, I just want to like drink and shag, basically, is what he's saying. And off he goes and carries on drinking. We see Viserys, he's sort of been looking over at Damon a few times, and then gets up, and again we sort of see his health has deteriorated greatly again. And he goes over to Damon and sort of gives his condolences, and again he sort of gives him an olive branch and sort of says, look, we've had our differences, like it's time to come home, you know, let's leave you know, things in the past. And Damon sort of, you know, is quite controlled, but you can see he gets quite angry, and he's sort of like, my home is played us with my daughters, that we've built a home there. And King's like sort of pushes it a bit, and he's just sort of going, I don't need anything. Because actually, I don't need anything from you, but he doesn't. He sort of cuts off, and he just walks off, you know, rather than cause a scene. At this, the king basically is just sort of tired. Like I say, he looks very ill. He goes to leave, and he looks over to Alison and says, I'm going to bed. Good night, Emma. Like his former wife's name, and her face, she's horrified. And there's a little bit, actually, was that intentional? Because I think, you know, he's sort of having a bit up to here with Alison and all the Rhaenyra stuff right now. So yeah, her face is the face of thunder. We then, as it starts to get dark, Otto walks down and basically finds Aegon like sort of passed out, and he like kicks him, and he's like, oh, and he gets him by the sort of scruffs and drags him up and tells him to get himself. You know, he's getting so annoyed that this kid has got no interest in being king at all, and it's really starting to show. We cut to the Grand Hall. Here you got Lord and Lady Valerian talking, and obviously she's heartbroken. She's lost her daughter, and initially she starts blaming Damon, saying, well, if they're at Driftmark, we've got better health care, you know, better doctors or maesters, and she wouldn't have died if she was here. And he's like, no, come on, you know, they're as well trained there as they are here. You can't blame Damon for this. And then she basically turns on him, and he's like, well, if it wasn't your constant quest for the crown, I gave up on being queen a decade ago, but you're constantly pushing, you know, for this to happen, for that to happen. And then she basically says that she wants Driftmark to go to Damon's daughters and Rhaenyra's daughters, rather than Laenor's children. And he's kind of horrified by this, saying that there's already a big enough shadow over these boys. If we cut them out, do you know what this will do? It's not, you know, and you know, sort of disrespect your son that way. And she basically comes out and says, look, we both know they're not your blood, they're not my blood, kind of thing. And she wants it to go to the bloodline, and he basically turns around and says to her, look, in history, people remember names, they don't remember blood. And basically kind of sort of says, you know, so you see a very different dynamic by the way he was talking to Luke earlier. And he knows, I mean, they all know, but it's like he still looks at them as his grandchildren. He obviously has a lot of affection for these kids. He gets it's not their fault. It's not their fault who their father is or isn't. Whereas she's much more, you can tell she favours Damon's children because they're pure blood. So it's quite an interesting dynamic sort of coming between these two characters, and where they're sort of pulling to and what's important to them. So Rhaenyra has gone and walked down on the beach, and she finds Daemon, and they basically start discussing her marriage, and she's really worried that Laenor, he wasn't very strong before. She goes like, I know my marriage is a sham, but I try and keep up appearances, but he's just always running off and indulging himself, and he's very open about the sort of the men that he's seeing, and she just is worried about what's going to happen, who's going to have her back. And she sort of says to Daemon that you abandoned me, look what's happened since you left, I've got no one to help me, no one to protect me, because everybody knows that the only thing that's keeping us safe right now is the king, and his health is going day by day. And basically this kind of culminates to them being on the beach, and she sort of says, you and I should have been together. And he was like, well, you were just a child then. And she's like, well, I'm not a child now. And she basically, makes a pass at him. She kisses him, and he responds, and they end up basically having sex on the beach, as you do. But Rhaenyra is very much, I think, sort of setting out her stall as to what she wants now that Daemon's available. And I think there's always been an attraction there, but it's also, say, politically, and for her to feel safe. While all this is taking place, Aemond goes off to the dragon. So Lena's dragon, and obviously that should go to her daughters. One of her daughters will claim the dragon and ride it. But he basically, this is like the oldest dragon, one of the oldest dragons. It's a huge dragon, and it's very, very valuable. So Aemon basically risks his life and goes and approaches the dragon. There's a point where there's a bit of a sort of standoff, and he says whatever dragon rider words it is. And there's a point where like the dragon's gonna sort of burn him, but then he commands again and he doesn't, and he's able to climb onto the dragon, and basically the dragon takes off and he's able to ride the dragon. Now, this is like a really big deal. So he's flying around, then he comes back. So the cousins notice that the dragon's flying around. They get their cousins, Luke and Jace, and they all come down, and Aemon walks in all smug, and she's like, and one of the girls goes, the dragon belongs to me, I was going to claim the dragon. He's like, well, I've claimed it first, so tough, basically. And they like start fighting, and basically she goes over, and he basically punches her, so her sister comes in and she punches him, and she lands a really good one on him, to be fair. But then this massive fight breaks out between all the children. So the girls are like punching him, then Luke and Jace get involved, and then basically Aemon grabs the youngest one, Luke, and has gone in by the throat, and he's picked up a rock, and he's basically going to kill him. And he says, I'm going to kill you, and you'll be screaming in pain the way your father died, kind of thing. And the kid's like, well, my dad's still alive, what are you talking about? And he looks over at his elder brother and goes, oh, he doesn't know about Lord Strong, and basically calls them bastards. To which obviously Jace then flies at him, knocks the rock out of his hand, and they're on the floor and they're fighting, and Jace hits Aemon hits Jace with a rock, and then he's able to scrabble up, and he's on the floor, and Aemon picks up the rock and is basically going to kill him. He's like coming at him, so the youngest one then throws a load of dirt in his face, which then enables Jace to take out a knife and basically goes and cuts him up the face, and basically cuts through his eye, and all his blood's going everywhere. At this point, the king's protectors finally turn up and break up the fight. And we cut to the main hall, and Viserys is there, all the children are there. Lord Valerian comes down, Rhaenyra comes in, and all hell's breaking loose, and all the kids are arguing, and it's like, what's happening? And the king basically sort of shouts out, basically to everybody to shut up, and he wants to know what's happened. And Alicent is all indignant as ever, basically saying that her kids are completely perfect. Her son hasn't, basically taking the high ground, saying, well, her children is, mortally wounded our son, and I demand justice, and it's all their fault. Even though we know Aemon started the fight basically and was going to kill his cousins. And they were like saying, "Oh, that's not what's going on." And basically, Jake tells his mother that he called them bastards. So she verbalizes this. She basically turns around and says, "Well, there was, he basically turned around and has questioned their parentage." And obviously there's like a massive hush over the this is treason to basically voice this, even though we know everybody knows you can't voice it. So she's like really, and she knows damn well that the boys know because Alicent has said and tells them this all the time. So the king's like, where have you heard this lie? And he's like, I'm your king. I demand you tell me who told you. So he kind of looks at his mother, and you can see him he knows what this means if he basically gives his mother away. So then he blames his brother. Aegon's like, what are you blaming me for? So the king then goes over to him and says, where have you heard this lie? And he just basically kind of says, well, everybody knows. It's obvious. Just look at them. So the king's just about to lose it. He's just like, and he's just like, all this infighting has got to stop. We're all family. I want it to stop. This matter is done. You all apologize to each other, and that's it. I don't want to hear another thing. To which Alicent then just loses her shit. So she's like, this isn't good enough. I demand more than an apology. He's lost an eye. So then she commands Sir Criston to go and cut the eye out of one of Rhaenyra's sons, and he goes, he can pick which one it is because she's a luxury my son didn't get. And she's like, I command you, you're my, and he's like, yeah, but I'm only sworn to protect you. Like, I'm not sworn to go around maiming children. And the king is like, that's enough. I've told you, stop. That's it. So Alicent then basically grabs the knife from the king's belt and goes at Rhaenyra, and she has a youngest kind of behind her, and he screams in terror. This kid is absolutely petrified. And obviously Rhaenyra and her have a little bit of a set too. Well, all this has been playing out. You've just got Daemon just standing at the side. I'm sort of folded, just watching all this unravel. And so Criston comes tanking in to obviously protect Alicent, and Daemon just basically blocks him and stops him from getting to the women. And they're basically having a bit of a set to and a conversation. And Alicent just basically, she goes like, all these, you're just you're allowed to, I play by the rules, and look what's happened. Well, you get to flout the rules, and yet again, it's fine, And Rhaenyra's like, oh, it must be exhausting, being on your moral high soapbox all the time. Much better wording than I'm using. And Alicent just sort of brings down the knife and basically cuts open Rhaenyra's arm, a massive great gash down her arm. At which point, the king just like, that's enough. Like, everybody, that is it, kind of thing. And Alicent is in a position where, she could now be done for treason. I mean, she's actually harmed the princess, but obviously the king is just like, family is everything to him. So he's just like, we're done. The next day, Otto goes to see Alicent, and she's basically, oh yeah, come on, say your piece, because she's basically waiting for the lecture. And actually he turns around and says that I've never seen this side of you before. And he basically turns around and said he's actually sort of quite proud of her, that she's finally ready to play the game, that she does have some guts about her. She is prepared to fight for the throne and her children and all of that. And he's like, finally, you're ready to play, you know, you're ready for this, you're ready to play the game, and if we stay together and we stay true, we're gonna win. While this sort of conversation's happening, we then sort of see Rhaenyra with her children, the maester stitching up her arm, and Laenor finally turns up because he's missed all of this. He's been off, you know, with his male partner and drinking and you know, grieving his sister. Fair enough. And they have quite a sweet conversation actually. That he's kind of like, you know, oh my god, I can't believe all this happened. She's like, you know, the parentage of our children's been questioned again, and it's been like in front of everybody. Like she's in a really precarious situation. And he's like, oh, I've let you down. You know, we made an agreement. You know, Sir Cole, who his boyfriend is due to go back to the Stepstones. I recommit to you. I'm going to stop all this messing around. He goes, right, I'm going to be a husband to you. I'm going to be a father to the boys. And I'm going to train them to be princes. And we have to get you ready for ascension to the throne. I'm going to protect you. I've got your back. I'm going to stop mucking around. I'm going to stop seeing other people. You know, that arrangement was fine when we're kids, but, you know, this is serious now. And she's a little bit taken aback in a nice way. And she's just like, you know, you're very honorable and you're trustworthy. And he's like, he's like, you know, struggling with the fact that obviously he's gay and he's not been able to give her children. And this is all kind of, he's sort of blaming himself. And he's like, curse the gods, they made me this way. And she's like, no, you know, you're a beautiful soul. And that's so rare in this world. Because, you know, he's got no side. He's got no game. He, you know, he cares about her and loves her in as much as, you know, not in a in love way, but he loves her as much, like same as she loves him. And she kind of like sort of says, you know, don't change, you know, kind of thing. We then see Viserys and Alicent and everybody leaving, and they're on the boat, and obviously it's a bit frosty between Alicent and the king, and then we see Larry sort of sidle up to Alicent again, and she's just sort of basically again acknowledging, you know, he's sort of like, you know, remember what I've done for you kind of thing. And with him, you know, it's like, yeah, I know I've got your allegiance, and yes, I will call on you when the time's right. But she also knows he wouldn't, you know, I don't think he'd hesitate twice to put a hatchet in her back if it progressed him. So they're kind of sort of like, you know, mutually assured destruction between them at the moment. And then it goes back to, you thought, Daemon and Rhaenyra talking. And she's like, you know, basically saying that, you know, she loves Laenor. He's you know, but he's not up to the task. And she needs someone that's going to protect her. And she needs to fortify the throne. And the only way that can happen is that basically her and Daemon need to get married. And they should have done that originally. You know, they're made for each other, basically. And Daemon says to her, but you know, the only way that can happen is if Laenor dies. And she's like, yeah, I know. So then we kind of see Daemon go off, and you know, when he's doing his wrongings, he's got his hood up, and he goes and finds Sir Cole, and basically sort of says to him, look, you know, there's you know, you're a knight, but you like the finer things in life. Hence, kind of like, you know, why is it Laenor like your patron? You like, you know, you like your good food and your good wines. And there's places across the sea where it doesn't matter, you know, what your name is, i.e., what your standing is. As long as you get there and you're wealthy, you can basically be whatever you want to be. And he's like, well, you know, well, what are you asking of me? And it's kind of like a quick death with lots of witnesses. We then go back to Driftmark, and there's a conversation with Daemon and Rhaenyra kind of over the top of what we're seeing. So we see Daemon killing a guard and letting Sir Cole in. And they're in the Great Hall in Driftmark, and Laenor comes in, and Sir Cole's like, you know, you've always looked down on me, and they start fighting. And yeah, you kind of got this voiceover. And Damon's sort of saying to Rhaenyra, you know, grant him this kindness and set him free. And she's like, but this will cost the Lord Valerian, that their only living child. I can't, you know, can we do that? You know, and Dame was like, you know, you've got to do what you've got to do, kind of thing. And then we cut back to the Great Hall, and there's basically a body fallen like into the fireplace. It's just burnt to crisp from sort of the top torso up, and you basically see the bottom half is like Laenor's boots. And obviously Lord and Lady Valeria come in. She's hysterical. She's crying. She's on the floor on her knees and crying. She's just basically lost both her children in the space of days. Absolutely devastated. We then see, so we're not sure whether it's literally, you assume a few days have passed or a few weeks maybe, and you see Damon and Rhaenyra getting married, and all their children are there. And sort of looking all quite somber. I think the kids are all kind of in a bit of a whirlwind that they're like lost their parents, and now they're seeing their other respective parents getting sort of remarried straight away. But like I say, the 4 cousins are actually quite close, so I think, you know, they will protect each other anyway. So I think that's actually quite good for the kids. I mean, who knows, having Damon and Rhaenyra as parents will pan out. We'll have to see. But what we do see at the end is a rowboat, and you see Cole getting into the rowboat, and then we see a shaved head Laenor and escaping to a boat to get away. So he didn't actually die in the fire. So what's not 100% clear is whether Rhaenyra knows he's alive. That basically Damon agreed with Laenor to fake his death and he could get away, and then she's got plausible deniability because she doesn't know, or she does know and they came up with the plan together. But either way, that Laenor can get away and basically live the life that he wants. You know, he doesn't want to be king, he doesn't want all the, yes, he likes the nicer things in life, but he just wants to be anonymous, living his life with a partner. So kind of a happy ending at the moment for Laenor. I'm sure at some point it's going to maybe come back to bite us. But there was that horrific moment when you thought Laenor was dead. I was literally, oh my God, she's killed him. She's had him killed. So, like you say, some people have taken that she knew and was in on it. Some people, I'm a little bit, I don't think she knows he's alive, to be honest. I think, you know, she's doing what needs to be done to be with Damon. And again, she's got complete plausible deniability that she knows nothing about this plot, which I think Damon would do actually to protect her. So again, only time will tell how that will play out. But an absolute blinding episode. Again, every week this show is just building. I can't wait till Monday's episode. Really looking forward to it. Yeah, it's just so much intrigue. You can see all the pieces are kind of on the board now. We know from the trailer for next week that King Viserys is basically kind of on his deathbed now. And you've got Otto and Alicent sort of sitting on the Iron Throne, and they're basically ruling. And Rhaenyra's like, no, it's time for us, her and Damon, to go back and sort of claim the throne. So it's definitely going to be sort of kicking off, which I can't wait to see. Yeah, so that's this week's TV. So another House of Dragons to look forward to next week. Final episode of She-Hulk. Come on. And Andor. maybe something will happen. Who knows? But that's week's that's too much lame sip. That's this week's TV. Not too much. I mean, next month we're only almost just over 4 weeks away from Manifest season 4, which I can't wait for. Season 4 part 1. I'm going to try and put a video out in the next few weeks covering Manifest season 1 to 3 to bring you up to speed. And if you haven't watched it, hopefully you'll get the bug to watch that, to watch season 4. First 3 seasons are on Sky or Now. Season 4 is going to be on Netflix, and I'll explain why when you watch the video. So very much looking forward to that. We had the announcement that finally Jodie Whittaker's Doctor is dying. Yes, regenerating on the 23rd of October. Ding dong. You know, I know there's Jodie fans out there, and I love that you love her and that she's your doctor. All of us have got a doctor. We don't all agree on doctors. and it's fine. You can love her, and you've got your 3 seasons that you can watch till the cows come home. But I can't wait to see the back of her, to be honest. I've not really talked about Doctor Who on the weeklies, but I am a massive Doctor Who fan, both original and New Who, but stopped watching when Jodie took over. So yeah, now she's going. We're going to have the 60th coming up next year, and and Shooty taking over. I've got real mixed feelings on this. I have a lot of time and respect for Russell T Davies as a writer, both for Doctor Who and outside Doctor Who. Some of his stuff is not my cup of tea, but a lot of it is. And even in Doctor Who, if he's going to do something political, I'll say that, it's normally very cleverly written. He discussed the whole thing about slavery, and it was the ood. We didn't need to go back to Africa and show literal slaves to get the message across, to beat us all around the head with. He's much more subtle in how he talks about the things that are important to him. I've seen some sort of eye rolling Twitter's going, because he wants to put climate change, I think, in season 2. And it was like, oh God, he's going to talk about climate change. And it's like, so what? It's like, if it's a compelling, interesting story that makes us think, I'm okay with that, whether you believe in climate change or you don't. It's like, if it's a compelling story, why wouldn't we want to watch it? If it's like, beating us round the head and, it's so on the nose, and it's just like we're sitting there going, yes, we get it. We should recycle. We should have electric cars. We get it. Of course, we're not going to watch it. But I've got a bit more faith in RTD than that. And Russell T Davies, for those who don't know who I'm talking about, he's a very famous British writer, done Doctor Who seasons 1 to 4 and the specials, and basically brought back Doctor Who in 2005. He recently had a massive hit with It's a Sin, which I absolutely adored. I think it's sort of obviously set in the 80s, like sort of 1983 to 91, set in London, with the breakout of AIDS, and it follows these sort of 5 core characters with the onset of AIDS and what happens to all those characters. Oh, it's funny, it's heartbreaking. Oh, I cried, I laughed. It's and some of it is based on obviously Russell's life, because he is a gay man, and he sort of said, one of the characters in it is based on one of his best friends, and his best friend actually paid the mother of the girl of herself, if that makes sense. But it was absolutely superb. I think it's on Netflix at the moment. Yeah, absolutely amazing stuff. He's done lots of shows over the years. A lot of them obviously do have a gay slant, like Queer as Folk, which again was groundbreaking back in the 90s. They've just remade it in America now. It's like, dude, we had this back in the 90s. Where have you been? They're always on the back foot. But they was like very well written, very character driven. And yeah, sort of gay drama isn't for everybody, but he doesn't expect it to be. That's different. He appreciates that he's writing something for a specific audience, and doesn't go around calling everybody homophobes if they don't get it or don't connect with it. He's writing a very specific story for a specific audience. But let's say he doesn't do all political stuff. As you see from his Doctor Who writing and Sarah Jane Adventures, he wrote those as well, which people forget. And he wrote one of the best Torchwood / Doctor Who universe series ever, which was Children of Earth. Go check that one out. It is absolutely amazing. It's like, yeah, it's absolutely, again, Peter Capaldi wasn't playing the Doctor, but yeah, great show. So yeah, looking forward to the 23rd of October. I'm not going to be watching it because I don't care. I just want to go on. I'll go on iPlayer and just watch the final bit when she regenerates. But to be fair, somebody will put a clip up and put it on Twitter anyway, or YouTube, so I can just watch it there. I don't want to be giving any ratings to her tenure. And it'll go one of two ways. The ratings will either be absolutely in the toilet, as we've seen with Flux and all the other fluxing things she's done. I mean, the Christmas, well, it's not even Christmas specials anymore. They got moved to New Year because they couldn't bring in the audience. Yeah, so, or it will get a peek just out of people's interest to sort of see how she goes, or just want to make sure that she does go. But I very much, I don't want to give him any ratings at all. But yeah, I just watch her burn. So sorry if you're a Jodie fan, but not for me. Oh. So I think that's about it. So like I say, we're still waiting for the new shows to start. As always, forgot to put it on. Do like, share, and subscribe. Oh, I've got cold brain. I do apologise. Probably not my best video with croaking and sniffling and can't remember what I'm about to say. But anyway, I do hope you enjoyed watching me suffer through to give you my reviews this week. Sorry, I've kind of lost it now. Yes, so where was I? Do like, share, and subscribe. It all really, really helps. When you like it, it helps the algorithm and it helps other people see the channel. So help spread the word. And I will be back, hopefully, cold-free next week for the last She-Hulk. I'm so excited. But that does mean I've got to find something else, preferably nothing from Disney, so I can keep my sanity intact. Have a good week, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.